Let this big IP come up. Meantime, let me start this F5 lab as well. So we will have access to the big IP first, and thereafter we will continue with the NAT. Okay. So let me have access to .246. It will take some time, right? Let it become operative, because as of now it is inoperative. So we might have to wait for another couple of minutes. Okay. All right, it's active now. So let's go back and let's have access to it. We are logged in. Okay. And currently, you know what's there? I have to go to resource provisioning, and even I have enabled the GTM here. So what I will do, I'll just, I'm sorry. So none LTM is like dedicated, right? So let me just allocate all the resources to LTM only. So give it a moment. I can have console access to each and every device now. So I believe that in previous class I covered priority group activation, and also I covered SNAT using AutoMap as well as SNAT pool, right? So the first task would be, today's task would be to have access to any one of these servers using public IP. So let's say there is a server 2, and I want that the access of this server 2 should be available to my internet users using a single public IP. So for that purpose, I would need to configure static NAT. So first today we are going to learn that how to configure static NAT over big IP. Okay. So we have a bunch of public IP addresses available right onto our big IP. So the IP that I'll be using here, let's say 5.5.10. So what I want that if I'm hitting 5.5.10, then I should have an access to the server 2, server 2. So because sometimes that somebody is accessing your servers, real servers from internet. Maybe they are working from home, and you want them to have access to this real server using a public IP address, right? So this is why I'm going to perform the static NAT here onto big IP. So the today's task would be to configure the big IP. Okay. So it says like it must be rebooted. So let me do one thing then. Let me reboot it first. Just a moment, right? Because reboot was needed. So first we are going to configure the static NAT, and thereafter I'll teach you that how you can provide an internet access to your real servers using big IP. And thereafter I'll go for the monitors. Okay. So today we have a lot uh, to do, right? Our to-do list is quite big today. So again, GUI will take some time here. Still it's inoperative. So it will become active. Give it some time, please. Okay, it's active now. So if I go back, I should be able to log in back on the device. So yes, it's good. And this time we have only LTM enabled over here, right? So here you go. So I have a virtual server, right? And that's 5.5.5. So this is fine. So in case if I go back to my test machine, which is this, right? So if I try to access a website using 5.5.5 IP address, here you go, 5.5.5. it should be redirected to HTTPS automatically since we configured the redirection using iRule, and also we configured SSL offloading, right? So we must have a secure connection between the end user machine and the big IP, and thereafter between big IP and the real server, traffic should get exchanged in plain text format. Okay, so yeah, you can see that we do have access to. One sec, guys. Probably इसको पीछे रखना, किचन में एकदम आराम से किचन किचन में फोन बंद है ना, तो ऊपर से देख रहा है, किचन को खोल के और किचन में पीछे रखना एकदम, मैं लगा दूंगा इसको बाद में। किचन खोलना है इसको, अरे ये डोर है तो तेरे सामने है, स्लाइडिंग डोर है, यहाँ ऐसे कर, इधर पीछे। Okay. All right. So we do have access to it, right? So you can see that even load balancing is taking place, right? So it's router 2 from where we access this web page, and thereafter then, it's router 3, and then it should be router 1 and 2 back, right? So that's what you are doing. So that's fantastic, right? So what I want, that if I have a public IP address here, right? So let's say you have a public IP address, for example, 555.10, right? And what I want, that if I hit this IP address, then I should have an access to this router 2, server 2. You get my point? So yeah, that's fine. Like, first of all, we just have to make sure that if any end user from any internet is coming to this IP address, then it should be redirected to DCH, and then this DCH should have a route to big IP, and that's what we already have in place. Okay, so routing is already in place because I bought a public subnet, right? So this IP address also belongs to that public subnet. Okay, so what I will do, I'll go back to this this F5 load balancer, right? And thereafter, let's go to the network translation, and then you have so many options like SNet list, SNet pool, SNet translation, net list. So net list is your static net. Okay, net list is what? Static net. You go there, click on create, or provide some name, let's say static net for server 2, right? Net address. So that's going to be 5.5.10, right? And then original address is going to be 20.20 because that's the IP address of server 2, right? So what I'm saying is that, hey, if you are hitting this IP address 5.5.10, then it should get translated to 20.20, right? I'm going to get this enabled on VLAN. That's my external VLAN. And only on internal VLAN, not on any other VLAN, right? So even we can also enhance the security in this way. Okay, so that's how we got this enabled, right? Go ahead, finish this up. You have that rule in place. Now let's go back to my test machine, and I'm gonna hit 5.5.10, right? 5.5.10. Here you go. Now remember, if somebody is trying to hit only 5.5.10 with using without port number, then you will not be able to have anything. You will not be able to access anything. You know what? Because previously your virtual server was translating your port 80, because you hit over port 80 or maybe 443. So that got translated into 8000 because my actual server, my real server is listening over port 8000. So now if you are trying to hit over port 80, of course, it will not be successful, right? Now, if you want to make successful transactions, right, you just have to make sure that you are hitting your real server using actual port, which is 8000, right, guys? So if you put 8,000, then you can have an access of that real server. And now, no matter that how many times you are refreshing this page, every time you would have an access to router 2 only, right? Because that's server 2, okay? So that's how you can configure static NAT. So static NAT is useful in case if you want to provide an access to your specific server, right? I mean, if you want to provide an access to your specific server, right, to your internet users, go ahead and configure the static NAT. So that means that even your big IP does support for static NAT, and that's how we configured the static NAT. So if you have any questions around this static NAT that I configured under address translation and then NAT list, so I just created that rule that hey, if somebody is trying to hit 5.5.10, then it should get translated back to 20.20. So that's what you have in place. Right, guys? Is there any question around this?
Sir, is it possible to translate port as well?
Is it possible to translate the port as well? No, it's not possible. Like you are talking about the static path, Rahul, right? Hello, Rahul, are you
Hello,
online?
yes, sir.
I'm
Yes, sir.
asking
Yes,
you
sir.
that I believe that you are talking about the static path. That if somebody is trying to hit on this IP and port number, then it should get translated back to this IP and port. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's part of the static path, and that's something which is not supported by big IP. Okay. So here you cannot define your port numbers. You can define only and only IP addresses, not port numbers during static NAT. So Rahul, how your interview went?
Sir, it was okay. I mean, the same thing. It was a knock profile, so they asked too many troubleshooting kind of question. If this is not coming up, what would you do? This
But
is
you
the
would have
issue.
told them that you never got an opportunity to work on this technology. So you know this technology. So as soon as you start working on this, then troubleshooting is
Yeah, I told them, but they said, yeah, we want a guy who has already kind of working in knock
hands-on
environment and all.
experience, right?
Yes, yes.
Then this is difficult then for you.
I told them actually I have knowledge. I have clear with my basic concept and all configuration deployment part. So I will learn. I don't know what is going to be, but
Okay.
it seems it's not a
Was it
positive.
Edison or somebody else?
Sir, it was NTT.
NBT. So are they hiring some people?
Yes, they are. I got a call from Naukri.com.
Okay,
So
okay. Then let me give you some feedback. Don't join them. Okay. Search for some other job.
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sure.
Hello.
Hello.
एक सेकंड होल्ड करो राहुल. हाँ बोलो.
Okay.
अरे नहीं मैं क्लास में हूँ. ना घर पे लिखे ना वो सफाई करने के लिए कितना लेट आई थी. लड़के इधर ही मंगवाया तो Hey guys, I'm sorry, I'm bad. I got a call actually. All right. So Rahul, what I was saying, don't join them, right? If somebody joins them, you know, I mean, I have got literally, I've got so many bad feedbacks about them.
Okay.
They will hire you. They will tell you something. Then also the problem with them is that they will go for at least 2 years long bond or maybe 1 year. I mean, bond is mandatory for them. And if you break the bond, you cannot offer them, hey, I'm paying you that much money and then provide me my experience letter. They will never go for that. They will not, they will not go for your background verification. So better not to join that kind of organization. Okay. Who took your interview?
Sorry, sir.
Who took your interview? Who was on call?
Some guy named Uday Prakash. I think he was. He took second round, and there was some other guy. I don't remember his name, but he was also there. So he was kind of manager of managers. So he was asking me like,
Vaibhav was there.
no sir, no sir.
Then it was um,
They were, I think, from South Indian. They were South Indian guys.
hmm, whoever he was. So it was for NBT, right? Network Bulls Technologies.
No, sir. That is entity, global entity, entity global.
I thought
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you are talking about the NBT.
No, no, sir, no, sir.
The NTT is big, guys. They are giant. So if you get an
Yes.
opportunity, then go for them. They are
That's what.
giant. I thought that you are talking
Uh,
about the Network Bulls Technologies, NBT. So if it is NTT, you go. I mean, you must go for that. Okay. If you get any opportunity, and how what happened with you for? I mean, I believe that you applied in a recent as well.
yes, sir. The second round was. I mean, I cleared the first round, but I didn't get for second call for second round.
So what's the
So,
problem actually? Where are you facing the problems? Let me understand that.
uh, in the troubleshooting part only,
Do you
we
have some
deploy
prior experience?
in SD-WAN, sir.
No, not in SD-WAN. I'm talking about overall experience.
Yeah, I have experience in routing switching,
How much
configuration, and
experience do you have?
total of 5 years and 4 months. So it
Five
is
years and
five
two
years
months. Then
plus.
you should be able to correlate things not together.
Yes, sir. I do actually on the basic part of what we used to do in routing all the ping trace and monitor logs and all. So I tell them all these things, but still I don't think they were satisfied. I don't know
No,
what
but
they are.
my point is, if your technical skills are that much strong, then there should not be any question that you cannot answer if it is related to troubleshoot.
So they were sir actually asking specific to SD-WAN. What would you do if controller connection is breaking frequently? So I'll tell them, yeah, we would check the ISP connectivity, what logs you're going to hand over. I don't know what they were expecting me to answer, but I tried my best as per the basic troubleshooting scenarios. What we do in the network usually.
Entity is fine. Keep trying to keep trying to learn something from the interviews attempt as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do one thing. You share your CV with Saurabh Rawat. He will also help you out to get some calls.
Okay, so okay, sir, I'll be in touch with you after the class. So
Okay,
I'll get his
fine. So
email
let's
ID and
continue with the big IP now. All right, guys. So who else has joined? Okay. All right. Parveen, Jagdish, and Arjun. Perfect. So Arjun and Parveen, do you have any issues regarding this static net that I have configured over here?
No.
So remember that end user has to hit it over port number 8000, right? Else the connection will not be established, right? Because you are not hitting to a virtual server this time. You're not matching your traffic with the virtual server, right? It's matching with the static NAT entry. So let me show you something here. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. I'm trying to show you something here. I have a Wait, I'll show you that later on because I'm not able to find the diagram. So basically, I have a data flow, right? That I'll explain with you, right? So I mean, at the moment I don't have that diagram, but I have a data flow, right? That I'll explain you that hey, first it will hit. I mean, first it will check whether it has an existing connection, right? If not, then it will establish that connection. Will check for the virtual server if it has a virtual server for that destination IP address listening on, right? If virtual server is there, then virtual server is going to respond back. If not, then it will check for the NAT entries. So there is a sequence of operations, right? So that's what I will explain you, but I just need that diagram, right? The traffic flow diagram. So using that traffic flow diagram, I'll explain you that what happens what. I mean, what happens when. So address translation, this is a static NAT, so that's working perfectly, and there should not be any issue with that. So we have learned SNAT using AutoMap as well as using SNAT pool, and also I have configured this static NAT entry over here, right? So that's what we have learned. Now, the next task for me would be, let me go ahead and let me remove this static NAT entry from here, right? I'm not need, I mean, I don't need that. Now, what I want is that if I have these servers like router 1, router 2, router 3, these all are my real servers, right? Server 1, server 2, like that. I want to provide them an internet connectivity, right? So one way of providing internet connectivity to your real server would be to have a, let's say, to have a router over here connected to your switch, and then this router should be connected with an ISP. And there should be somewhere, some firewalls in between to provide you secure internet connectivity. So the default gateway for all these servers would be your internet router's IP. And over here, you will be configuring NAT. So that is fine. I don't have any issues with that. You can do that. Okay. But what if you do not have this router? What if you have only your big IP? So now this time, this is your big IP, right? You have only big IP, which is also connected further with an internet. So is there any way to utilize this big IP as a router and to route your traffic, your internet traffic through the big IP only? So, I mean, initially what was happening, like if I talk about, if I talk about here this diagram, like end user is there, is connected with your router, then it's connected with ISP, then it is connected with DC edge, then it's connected with big IP, it's connected with a switch, and then it's connected with a real server. So if connection is being initiated from the client, this is fine. It will hit your virtual server. Virtual server can perform destination NAT and source NAT both, and thereafter, it will send the data to the servers, and then servers will respond back to big IP, and big IP will give that response back to the end user. But this time, the connection itself will get initiated from the real server itself. Like, hey, I want to access the Google data center or maybe Microsoft data center because I have Microsoft servers installed here and I want to download some updates. Or maybe I have Red Hat installed on my servers, right? And I want to update, I want to download some Red Hat updates. So I'll go to my big IP. So basically the flow will be initiated by this real server. So currently real server is using a private IP address, right? However, whenever it will send a DNS request, right? So it will always obtain a public IP address, right? So whenever real server will make a DNS request, it will always get a public IP in response. And whenever this real server will hit a Microsoft server, at that time source IP will be its own IP address, right? And destination will be source is its own, and destination would be its destination IP would be its public IP. So once it will hit this big IP, and then big IP should give it to the DC edge, and then DC edge should give it to the ISP. But remember that source NAT is mandatory. If source NAT is not happening, right? If source NAT is not happening, then of course the ISP will drop this data because the source IP was a private IP address. So now there is one more thing that you are not exposing this subnet, your lane subnet, which is behind your big IP. You are not exposing that subnet to even your DC edge router, right? So better that we perform NAT over here. Like I'll perform SNAT, but this time in reverse direction. Like traffic is being initialized by my real server. So it should perform the SNAT, which is PAT, and then I must have a public IP over here, which I will be using to perform PAT. So let's say that I have decided that, hey, I'll be using 55550, right? So this IP address I'll be using here to perform PAT for my real server. Okay, and thereafter, so whenever big IP will provide that that packet to the DCH, the source IP is going to be 55550, and destination would be, of course, it will remain as public IP, same as before, right? I mean, it will be a Microsoft data center's IP address from where my real servers will be downloading the Microsoft updates. So does that make sense to all of you? So this time I'll have to configure SNAT like PAT once again over the big IP, and I'll be using the IP address 5.5.50. So whenever my real servers will go to the internet, they will go with IP address 5.5.50. Okay. So that's how I'm going to have internet connectivity for my real servers. Okay. So I want to provide the internet connectivity to my real servers because they will need it, because sometimes they will have to upgrade their operating systems. They will have to download the updates, patches, like that. Okay. So in this condition, the flow will get initialized from the real server itself. Okay. So this big IP has to be configured as a router as well as it has to perform NAT. So let's configure this big IP as a router. So let's create a virtual server which will work as a router for my real servers. So let's go to the virtual server, and this time I'm going to create a layer 3 virtual server because layer 3 virtual server is needed, which will be performing routing only. Okay. So not a standard. Let me select forwarding IP because I want to use this big IP as a router. So name is like L3 virtual server, maybe for internet, like this. Description, you can put anything. Source IP address is going to be my real server's subnet, and destination I'm not sure because it's internet, right? So that would be destination. This port I'm not sure that at which port my Microsoft my Microsoft data center would be listening on. So I'll just say all ports. Then protocol, it's not only TCP, it might use UDP as well. So I said all protocols. On which channel you want to enable it? You want to enable it only on the internal. I mean, you want to use this virtual server only for the traffic which you will be receiving on your internal VLAN, because your real servers are enabled or are part of internal VLAN only, right? So that's how it is. So thereafter you can scroll down, and then you could also enable the source address translation by using the SNAT pool, right? So you would have to create the pool, right? So that I don't have at the moment. So first I'll have to create a pool. So let me go back to SNAT pool list and let me create, because I said like 55550, right? So I decided to use this IP address over here. 55550 for the real servers to perform PAT, okay? So I have already bought that subnet of public IP. So let me create a pool over here. So pool is like test pool. For SNAT for real servers. The IP address is going to be 5.5.50. Get it added. Say finished. And thereafter, let's go back to the same virtual server. And over here, if I say, SNAT and then a SNAT pool, I still don't have that option available, right? So which means that I'll have to refresh. I'll have to create it again, right? So just a moment, please. So let me create it once again. So the name, same as before. The source, as I said, 20.0/24. Destination is 0.0/0. Ports, all protocols. Then VLAN, enabled only on internal VLAN, which is in which I have my real servers. SNAT, and thereafter you can see test pool for SNAT for the real server. Okay, so this is where you have called it. But and there is no, you can look at here. There is no way to attach your pool even, right? So this is not for load sharing, right? This layer 3 virtual server, forwarding IP virtual server, is to configure your big IP as a router only, right? So you can see that even you cannot attach any pool over here. Okay, you cannot. There is no option for that. Do you have that option to attach the pool here or pool over this virtual server? Of course, no, you don't have that. Thereafter, let's go ahead and finish this up. So it says that some fields below contains error, right? So it says HTTP proxy profile, okay? So let's say proxy connect only, and that's it.
Saurav, I think the type you have kept is standard only. That needs to be changed to IP forwarding.
I'm sorry. That should be forwarding IP. It should be forwarding on IP only. So there is no way to attach, the web server pools. So that's why it was giving me that error before. So go ahead, finish this up, and this time it should be saved. Yeah, it is saved. And in fact, you can look at the status of this virtual server that you have just created. The status is blue. It's blue square, right? It is blue square. Makes sense, sir? And it's unknown. And you know why? Because there is no pool attached to it. There is no pool attached to it. And we are not really aware that what's the status of the pool is, right? So that's why the status of this virtual server will always remain unknown. You cannot modify that because we don't have anything to attach with this virtual server based on which it can change its status. Okay? So that's not something possible. Any questions so far? All right. So thereafter,
So, sir, in that case, if any server failed to get an update or connect to internet or Microsoft servers, so is there any way to, I mean, from the monitoring perspective, is there any way to find out? Because it is unknown there.
what to find out? Whether it has reachability or not.
Yes, yes.
I mean, there is no way by default, right? Because there is no way to apply the, there is no way to apply any monitor onto this type of virtual server. Okay, and that is why the status will always remain as unknown. See, I have already shown you. Go to network map, go ahead, look at this. It will display you everything. So if any one of the virtual server is down, you can look at here. What end user will complain to you about? End user is going to say, hey, I'm not able to access this website. That's what they will say. You get my point? I mean, you must be having some virtual server applied for one of the website, right? So if that virtual server is down, of course, that website will not be accessible to the end users then, okay? So end users will complain to you that they are not able to access any website. They will never complain to you, hey, your virtual server is not accessible. Because end user is not really aware with the technology, what's happening in backend, right? So they cares about whether they have an access to the internet, to the website or not. So if the website is not accessible for the end users are gonna raise complaint to their internal IT help desk, and thereafter they will perform some basic troubleshooting and they will hand off that to the network team. And network team will also check, hey, we do have end-to-end connectivity. It looks like that it's a load balancer issue. Then they will connect with the firewall and load balancer teams, right? And then load balancer will see. I mean, load balancer team will get logged in to the big IP, and then they will directly go to this. Network man, and first they will check the status of the virtual server, right, for that website that you have hosted over here. So make sense? So from here you can easily look at what is up, what is down on this page itself for all of the virtual servers that you have created over here. Because if your virtual server status is down, then definitely it will show you down over here. Now, if that is down, then you will have to check why it is down. So probably you will have to look at the pools in that condition, because pools are attached to your virtual server, right? So virtual server can go down only and only if all of the pool members were down. Because all of the pool members were down, then pool will go down. If pool is down, then virtual server, the status of the virtual server will also be down. Okay, perfect. So if you have this, let's say this is the pool, right? And then you go to, if you went to member, right? And if one of this pool member is down, remember that in intermittent, like if this pool member is down, then your big IP is not going to utilize that pool member at all. That's my point. So end user will never complain about that. Will never ever. So end user will never complain about that. The reason? Because my pool will expel or will remove that server from the load balancing algorithm, right? So during load balancing, my virtual server will never ever provide an IP address of that server which is not currently available. You get my point? I mean, it will never choose that server during load balancing, which is not available. Any
And
questions so
Saurabh,
far?
Saurabh Praveen here. I would like to add few more points in here. If suppose I have a virtual server and like I have three members, or you can say three pool members in that virtual server. So in that case, I won't be able to select a single what you say a pool member on the virtual server. In that case, my virtual server will be in unknown state.
No,
So
it will not be in
like
unknown state. Remember, look at this pool,
okay.
right? So the status of the pool is available, right? So now I have
Hmm,
attached this pool to my virtual server, and that is why the status of this virtual server is also green, which is available,
okay.
right? Now, in case, for example, if I go back to my pools and if I said, hey, you are down, okay, you are down, like pool members, all are force offline. Thereafter, the status of the pool is red. You get my point? And thereafter, the status of the pool, I
Mhm.
mean, the virtual server will also go down.
Okay, okay, okay.
In case if at least one pool member is available, let me show you now. For example, if I go back to members, I mean, let me say just one thing here. One is up. That's up. Thereafter, the status of this pool will be up, and thereafter, the status of the virtual server will be up then.
Okay, okay. Got it, got it.
Okay? So that's how it works. Let me go back to the pool and pool members. Let me bring them all back up. All right. So that's how it works. Now, any other question from you, Parveen?
No, that
I
seems
have
good.
not covered the monitor yet. So you will get a lot of information once we will start covering the monitor topics. I mean, the monitors topic.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
All right. So let's go
Okay.
back, and we have created this layer 3 virtual server now. And thereafter, if I go to my, let's say server 1, which is my router 1, right? So if I say my default gateway should be big IP's IP address, so which is good. Now I shall be able to access an internet, right? So over internet, what I have is, you can see over internet ISP router, I have couple of loopback interfaces, right? Let me show you. Like 1.1. I mean 11.11.11. So let me try that IP address from this server 1. So from server 1, I'm going to ping this IP address, which is a public IP address. So I shall be having an access to this public IP address, right? So let me see that what happened and why are not we able to access this IP address, because we were supposed to have access to it, right? So let me go back to this virtual server. So source is 20.0, destination is this. It is enabled on internal VLAN, this is fine, and also SNAT is taking place, right? And it's still, all right, so I have virtual server already in place, and it should have worked. It should have worked. So if I go back And if I am here over router 1, let me see what's happening here. Still I am not able to reach out to my internet. Now I'll have to see that what's happening. So what was the IP what was the pool? I mean, what was the SNET IP address? So I'll go to SNET pool list, and this is the IP address that I have added here, 5.5.50. Right, sir? So what should happen? Let me just go ahead and capture this link. Let me see if DCH is having a default route here. First of all, yeah, it has. So let me capture this link here. And thereafter, I'll perform the troubleshooting. That why we are not able to access that public IP from our server. Let me see what's happening. Even the packets are not traversing our big IP. So let me see if big IP is having a default route, right? So let me go back and on big IP, go to network tab, see routes. So it has a route. Yes, it has a default route. That's good. So I'll have to move over big IP now. I'll have to see what's happening. And even what I will do, I'll try to reach this IP address from all servers. No. No. It has a route. So let me go back to the CLI access to it, to my big IP. So 192.168.100.254. Is it reachable? Yeah, it is. Right, guys? So it's reachable. And it should have worked perfectly. Interfaces are up, which is good. Self IPs. This is also good. Virtual server, did I miss something here? I'll have to see that. 20.0, forwarding IP, state enable. Protocol is TCP. That was the problem, right? So it should have been all protocol because ping uses ICMP and only TCP was allowed. Okay. So that's something that we missed here. So go ahead, update it. Thereafter, let me ping it from router 1. Yep, it's pingable. From router 2, yes, it is pingable. From router 3, it's pingable. And look at the Wireshark. You are getting all the packets coming from a single IP, which is 5.5.50. You can see that. The source IP is always 5.5.50. However, the ping was initiated from 3 different servers. But in every case, in each case, you can see the source IP address is 5.5.50, which means that that was done by the big IP. So does that make sense to all of you now?
Yes.
All right. Let's go back to your big IP now. And onto this virtual server itself. If you are on this virtual server, you can go to stats and then you could see that how many packets were sent in, out, like that, like this. Okay, and the bits out, packets out, connections, like that. Okay, so that's how it will display you over here. And thereafter, you can also go back, network map, and you could see the status of your virtual server. So it is still unknown, right? So this virtual server is working as a router now for the traffic being initialized by the real servers. So this traffic was actually it was initialized by the real servers. So now your real servers are having an access to the internet now, and the PAT is being done by the big IP, and that should not be an issue for any one of you. Okay, so that's the layer 3 virtual server. That's how we utilized it. We utilized it as a router. So if I don't have that I mean, if I don't have this virtual server, even if it is not configured properly, if it is not allowing data for all protocols, of course ICMP will not be allowed, because earlier when we created it, we allowed only TCP based traffic, and that's what it was allowing. It was not allowing ICMP, and that was the reason that we were not able to reach out to the internet from the end user machine. But now you can reach out there, right? So even if you go back to your one of the machine here, and if you try to trace route 11.11.11.11 and numeric, then you can easily understand that, hey, first we reached out to big IP and thereafter DCS, and thereafter we are on internet. That's how it is happening. But we utilized over here, we utilize this SNAT. So let me remove it now, SNAT pool. First, let me go back to the virtual server. Let me remove it from, the SNAT. Let me remove it, right? So none. And then let me update this virtual server. So as soon as I remove this SNAT, remember that your ping pong will stop now. I mean, your real servers cannot ping this internet IP now. SNAT is being removed, right? So now you can go back and you created this SNAT pool. Right? Even you can go ahead and you can remove this pool. I mean, not this pool. Test pool for SNAT for real server. You can delete it because it's not in use anymore. So if you don't want to apply SNAT onto the layer 3 virtual server, rather you want to create a SNAT list here onto big IP itself without involving your virtual server, like globally. You can also do that. So you go to address translation and then SNAT list directly, create one SNAT list here, like testing, translation address. That's IP address, which is 5.5.50. Then origin IP address is the address list, and which is something going to be 20.0/24. Get this added. And this is going to be enabled on my internal VLANs. Finished it. Okay, so that's how you created a NAT list, a SNAT list. You provided your translation address, which is a public IP. You provided origin IP address, and also you enabled it on over internal VLAN. Now let's go back to R1 and let's try to ping this IP address, and it is reachable from all. You can see address translation list stats, and you can see right over here. You can go back and then you could check the SNAT translation list in front of you. You can look at there, right? So you can see that 5.5.50 is being utilized over here. Okay. So that's how you created the SNAT list. So this time I'm not enabling SNAT over the virtual server. I have configured this SNAT globally by utilizing SNAT list. So that is also another option available. Rather enabling SNAT pool over the virtual server, you configured this SNAT list globally onto your big IP. I have taught you static NAT. I have taught you PAT. I mean the static NAT using SNAT pools. I have taught you AutoMap. I have taught you that how to configure big IP as a router. Over router, I have taught you that how to configure SNAT pool for doing SNAT, and also I have taught you that how to create global SNAT lists. So if any one of you having any questions around this, please go ahead and ask your questions, because I'm done from my topic. Okay. You could capture your data. That's something that you can do using TCP dump, right? So using PuTTY, you could have access to your big IP, which is 2.246. Here you could say, hey, TCP dump, right? So hyphen I maybe oh my god, actually it even captured the packet for everything here, right? So that's not something which will help us. Um, you could say show IP, sorry, show NAT, show LTM, NAT, SNAT translation. Or so you could say this over, I mean, SNAT translation as well, right? So this is how you could look for using CLI. Also, you could create a static net over here, like go to LTM first, and thereafter you can go to either a SNAT pool like that. So like a SNAT pool, right? And then create one pool over here, like, hey, I want to create a pool, um, create test, right? And members, add, right? Let's say I wanted to add fighter 500 like this. List, you can see all of the list of the pool, I mean, SNAT pool, right? So I have just created this pool over here, right, with the name of test. I have assigned this IP address, right? Thereafter, if you want to create, for example, you wanted to create static NAT, then go to LTM and then say NAT, and then you could say create, and then you could provide some name over here like test static NAT, right? And then it is asking for translation address. Translation address is going to be your public IP. Let's say fighter 5101, and thereafter originating address, right? So IP address, which is going to be, let's say, 20.30, let's say, okay? And thereafter, you could just get this enabled only on the internal VLAN like this. So list, now you have this is static NAT entry over here. So whatever you did using GUI, you can also do it using CLI, right? So that's what I wanted to display you, and thereafter, let's come out from here and then just say save sysconfig. So whatever you did here now, you should be able to see that under your net list here. So yes, it is there. Thereafter, there's net pool, test pool is there. So yeah, that's fine. So if you wish, you can do it using CLI. You wish, you can do it using GUI. Any questions, Praveen?
No.
Okay. All right. So guys, the next topic that we are going to cover is the monitor, right? So uh, let's take one short break, like of 5 minutes, and thereafter we will continue with the monitors. Okay. So I'll be on mute for 5 minutes, and then I'll continue after 5 minutes. Okay. All right, guys, I'm back. So, Arjun, Praveen, are you all available? Jagdish,
Yep.
Arjun,
Yes,
you
sir.
there? Arjun, I think Arjun is not on seat. Arjun, maybe you are speaking on mute. Just a moment, guys. Let's give like another 1 or 2 minutes. Arjun,
Sir, Arjun is back now.
okay. Arjun, hello. I was waiting for you only. All right, guys. So I'll start with the monitors now. So why monitors are really important, right? So that's something that we will talk about now. Okay. This is done. This is done. Monitors. This is really important, right? So the point is, this module 3 monitors. It covers like, hey, if you have a couple of servers, right? You have a couple of nodes. You have pool members. How are you going to identify whether your pool member is up or down? How are you going to identify whether your node is up or down? How are you going How you can identify whether your service is running or not, right? So that's why we were needed these monitors, and monitors are really one of the key component of this big IP solution, right? Because if you do not have monitors, let's put monitors aside, right? So it will become like a traditional DNS server then, right? That would be that would be a problem then again, right? So how we can fix this problem? By implementing monitors, right? So when we talk about the monitors, we have a couple of different types of monitors like address check, service check, content check, interactive check, path check, like that. We shall be able to understand that which type of, what's the meaning of these different monitor types, and in which scenario we should utilize which type of monitor, right? Or which type of monitor would be good for you. Okay. So here you can see monitor concepts. Like first, it's address check. So address check, ideally you do check for a node only. That hey, node, I want to check if you are up or down, right? So ideally, address check is applicable for nodes only, right? Nodes, like you have a server, you want to identify whether this server is up or down. So the best way would be to check the IP reachability. Whether this IP address, because node is nothing, just a IP address, right? Node is nothing, just a IP address. So if you can verify reachability with that IP address, right, that would be known as address check, and that would be sufficient also, because you just wanted to monitor your server only, right? So node IP, I mean, the ICMP is the best solution for this kind of monitoring, right? Because you can keep pinging a particular IP address, like you can set some timers like 5 seconds or maybe 10 seconds. It's totally up to you. You can keep pinging some IP address, and if you are getting a reply back, right? If you are getting a reply back, which means this node is up and running, and that's good. I mean, that's sufficient to know about, right? So address check is mainly meant for nodes. In address check, you will be using ICMP. Service check, because it is not sufficient to have only address check. Address check is fine, but only for node. What about the pool member, right? So let's say sometimes what happens, your node is available, right? Server is up and running, which is good. But sometimes your service might go down. Let's say your real server has stopped listening over port 8000. How can you identify that? Is it possible to identify that using ICMP? No, because ICMP will check the reachability with that IP address only. It cannot check, like using ICMP, you cannot check the status of the service, right? So if you want to check the status of the service, then you will have to go for either TCP or UDP, because it is a combination of IP and port, right? So if you want to check the status of the service, then you should use either TCP based monitors or UDP based monitors, and that depends. If you are if you are running a TCP based service on your real servers, like you could see that my real servers are providing web services over port 8000, and by default web services uses TCP. So in that condition, the monitor that you should apply is, I mean, it should be related to TCP only. Like you should keep trying to establish TCP connection, right, with your real server. And if your big IP was able to build TCP connection successfully, which means your service is running successfully on your real server, right? But sometimes, again, you might have some issues. You know how? For example, you can ping the IP address. Even your server is listening over the port number 8000. But what about if the web page itself got crashed? I mean, web directory, like somebody deleted web pages from the web server. You get my point? Somebody deleted website data from your web server. Then how can you monitor that? So for that, you have content check. So in content check, you can always send the HTTP GET request, and then you can receive the response back from the real servers, and then you can compare that response. If response was as expected, which is good. If it was not as expected, which means your content is not available onto your real server, and you should drag that server out from your pool. I mean, you should change its status from available to down. So content check is mainly for kind of web pages. Interactive check is there for kind of FTP protocol, maybe for your database servers, like you are using SQL, MySQL, like that. So you can make the interactive checks for that. Okay. So we have different types of monitors over here for different scenarios. So if you just wanna check the IP connectivity, then go for address check. If you wanna check the status of the IP plus port, which means service, then go for service check. If you wanna check the status of the data itself, right, the content itself of your website, if it is available or not onto the real server, then go for the content check. So address check. I said ICMP. You can keep trying to ping your nodes, right? So that's the best way. Service check. I mean, you can use the TCP and you can try to establish TCP connection. If the TCP connection was established successfully, that's good. If connection fails, which means service is down, right? Content check, like for web pages, you can send HTTP GET message. You will get a response. Or on big IP, you can always provide, hey, I should get this information in response. So if the information received in response message was matching with the information that you have provided during the creation of monitor, then your content is available onto your web server. If not, then this means content is down. So yeah, HTTP is the best example for that. Interactive check, as I said, like for FTP or SQL servers like that. Okay. The path check, you can check the entire path, right? So you can see like big IP to some website, whether like you have two destinations: first hop, device to test, endpoint, trusted site, packet through the first hop to the endpoint. If no response, then member unavailable, no connections to the member, like that. Okay, so that's how it works. So now I'm going to start configuring with the monitor. So first I'll check the address. I'll configure the address check. Thereafter, I'll go for the service check, and then thereafter, I'll go for the content checks. And finally, I'll go for the interactive checks. Okay. So now, when it comes to the monitor, so you have some monitor templates predefined onto your big IP. Okay. So if you go to your big IP, then you have some predefined, like if you look at here under LTM local traffic, then if you go to the monitors, so you have some predefined monitor templates. Either use them or you can create your own custom templates. So you have some ICMP based templates, some of HTTP based templates, some of them are TCP based templates, and one of UDP based template. Now, you wanted to create your custom monitor, fine. You go ahead and create it. Go ahead, create it. Let's say I wanted to create an ICMP monitor test, ICMP monitor, like this. Type, of course, if I'm testing the ICMP, then I should call the ICMP only. Then interval, this is what you can change here, right? So interval, let's say I just wanted to check it in every 3 seconds, right? The timeout is 16 seconds. Let's make it like 10 seconds now this time. So I have made little aggressive, right? Aggressive timers. Thereafter, manual resume is there. So if you enable the manual resume, which means if your monitor says, hey, this pool member is down or this node is down, then you will have to bring, even if the node is back up, still I'll not start utilizing that node or pool member in my services. So I'll have to resume those services manually. So I'm not going to enable that. So thereafter, go ahead and finish it up. So that's how you can create the ICMP monitor. Thereafter, you can go back to your nodes, and you know that each and every node is using the default monitor. So go to default monitor, ICMP was there, instead use test ICMP monitor. This is what we have created, the custom monitor. This is your custom monitor, right? So that's how we created it. So if you have any questions around this, please go ahead and ask that, because the output is still going to be same. So for nodes, it is better to use the ICMP only, and that's fine. One more thing, by default, all nodes are using the default monitor. But in case if you want to have the node specific monitor, that is also possible. So you can click on any one of the node like server 2, and thereafter you can see health monitor, not a default, but you could also say, hey, node specific. So I wanna have a specific monitor for this specific node only, right? So rather using node default, you can go for the node specific. So it's up to you. Even if you don't want to use any monitor for this node, go ahead and say none, okay? But you will have to go to nodes. So that's how you could manage your nodes. So do you have any questions around this? If you want to apply the monitors for the nodes, so it is always preferred to use the ICMP, because node is nothing, just an IP address. So you just have to verify whether this IP address is available or not. And you can verify that by pinging that IP address. And ping can be done using ICMP. And this is what I did. This is what I used here. So if you have any questions around ICMP monitor, please go ahead and ask your questions.
No question, sir.
All right. Good. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. You can apply multiple monitors. So if you go to the default monitor, you can have multiple monitors like gateway ICMP like this. You get my point? No. That's not possible. So if you are creating ICMP monitor, which means it is a ICMP monitor, because type, you can have only one type of monitor. You can create only one type of monitor at one time. Okay. All right. So that's how we created the ICMP monitor, and we applied that to the nodes, and that is all good. That's what we wanted, right? Thereafter, let me talk about the service check. So I know that my real servers are providing services over port 8000. So what I can do, I can generate TCP. I can perform three-way handshake. TCP, three-way handshake with my monitors. Sorry, with my real servers, right? So I can force big IP to establish three-way handshaking, TCP three-way handshake with the real servers in every like maybe 10 seconds, or maybe 15 seconds, or maybe more than that, or maybe in every 5 seconds. So this is what I can do. So go ahead, create one, like test TCP monitor. Select TCP over here. In every 5 seconds, you can change this timer as well. Thereafter, you can see all ports. No, I don't want to use the all ports. I want to check only 8000, right? So that's what I can pick over here. So in every 5 seconds, now it will keep generating, or it will keep, it will keep trying to establish the three-way handshake using port 8000. Go ahead, finish this up. Thereafter, you go back to your pool, because pool uses members, right? And you have a web server pool. It's using gateway ICMP. Don't use that. Use test TCP monitor. Go ahead, use it, and then you would see that the status of the pool is still green, right? All members are up, because they were able to establish the three-way handshake, right? They were able to perform three-way handshaking here with each and every server. Even you can perform capturing here, and then you can see that yes, Big IP is trying to establish three-way handshake. This is performing three-way handshaking in every 5 seconds. You can see sin, act, and then pin, act. Okay, sin, act like that, and then finish. So in every 5 seconds, it would happen, right? Now suddenly, what happened? Let's say server 1 stopped providing services over port 8000. So I said IP HTTP port, let's say 80. So now it has stopped providing services over port 8000, and thereafter you can see that here under members, the server 1 should go down automatically. But it might take up to 15 seconds, because the timeout was 15 seconds, okay? So server 1 should be Down. Yeah, it's down now. You can see that. However, node is available. Node is available because you are pinging that node IP address, right? So you are still able to ping the server one. That's why the status of the node is up and running. Okay. But if you go back to your pool and pool members, and thereafter you can see that under members, your member is not available. You know why? Because your big IP is trying to establish or is trying to perform three-way handshake using this server using port 8000, which my big IP is not capable of. Right? And that's why it's been removed from the pool. Like it's showing the status is down. Okay. Thereafter, let me go back and let me say, hey, no, I want to use 8000 only, right? So once you do so, right? Once you do so, now once again you can see that that member is back again. It's back, you know. I mean, the status of the server is now green, which is available. So my pool can start utilizing this server as well. So I hope that you have understood it, right? But let me tell you, is it really necessary to perform the entire three-way handshake? You know what we can do? I mean, instead of creating or instead of performing three-way handshake, what we can do? We can send a SYN, and if we get a SYN ACK, which means we are good because I will get SYN ACK only and only if my server is listening over that port number, right? I mean, SYN ACK is fine for me. And thereafter, I mean, I should not go for the complete three-way handshake. So I mean, it should be sufficient for me to have the half open session, right? So half open connection is fine for me. So let me go back to the monitors and let me create one. Okay, test TCP half open. TCP half open. Select TCP half open, and then port number is going to be 8000. In every 5 seconds, or maybe you can say, hey, in every 2 seconds, and timeout would be like 6 seconds. Finish, and thereafter you can go back to your pool, and your pool was having this monitoring test TCP. Rather, I'll use TCP half open this time, and you can see the effect here in your Wireshark. You will send SYN ACK, and then reset was sent. So there is no need to finish your connection by sending FIN ACK, FIN ACK like that. So you're sending SYN ACK and then reset in every 2 seconds, and you can see that. So it's not, I mean, it's not building complete three-way, it's not performing complete three-way handshaking, and still you can monitor that. You can see all members are up, right? In case if your maybe server 2 stops listening over port 8000, right? So you would see that server 2 would get removed from this pool dynamically. So this time the max interval is 6 seconds. The timeout interval was 6 seconds. So after 6 seconds, we observed that server 2 is now offline. Is down. It's in down state now. Any questions so far? And once again, you can see server 2, which is good. So it's all good now. Any questions, sir, from any one of you? So we used the TCP three-way handshaking, and also we utilized the TCP half open. Now, the point is that what about the web content? The point is pretty simple, right? What about the web content? So how can we, how can we monitor the web content itself? So for that, we have the content monitoring, and this is what I'll configure now, right? I'll go ahead and we'll make that work, okay? Just a moment. All right, so here you go. Just Start capture. Windows 7 machine. Let me refresh the page. Not Fighter 10. Basically, it's Fighter 5. I shall have access to this website, right? Because this website is still up and running. Yeah, that's nice. That's router 3. So you can see that how the get message was sent. So that was the get message, right? That was the get message, and thereafter you received a response back, and the response was 200 OK, right? So how I'm going to define if you look at here, there should be message body, right? So look at the message body. Yeah, here you go. That's body, right? All right, so that's fine. That's message body. So I'm sending HTTP GET request, and similarly I'm getting response back. So what I can do to perform the content check, I can go back to monitors, right? I could say, hey, I want to create a test HTTP monitor. The type should be HTTP only. What request I'll send? Let me show you. So that's get HTTP backslash forward slash 1.0 and thereafter backslash r backslash n. So that's going to be my request. So by doing packet capture itself, I can create this monitor, right? So that's my send string. And the receive I should have is HTTP forward slash 1.1 200 OK backslash r backslash n like this. So it should be 200 OK, and it will be 200 OK only if that web page does exist, which we are trying to access, right? So receive string is this. Username, I don't have anything. The port number that I'll be using is port 8000. I'll finish this up. I'll go back to my pool. And on my pool, along with TCP half open session, what I can do, or maybe I can independently, when I can have only one test HTTP monitor. That's only one, right? So the properties, the status should be up. Taking long time. It's down, which means that something is wrong.
Sir, last time I can recall you configure the receiving string as server colon some backslash like that.
Wait a moment. What you are saying here? Let me go back to monitor. Test HTTP. What I did?
In the receive string, you configure something like that server colon backslash something like that.
It should be. It should be. I mean, it should work. Let me do one thing here. Let me capture something. Just to see that what's happening in backend, right? That was for the head method, remember?
Yeah, okay, sir, okay. That was for that.
All right, cool. Pool is still down. Right, so which means hilarious. Okay, let me type this way. HTTP 1.1 200 space OK backslash error backslash n like this. Monitor was in, I mean, the receive string was incorrect actually. That's why it's not matching up, and therefore it is showing me it's down. Right, guys? No need for admin user ID, password, and anything like that. Get this updated. Yeah, it's up now. So basically, receive string was configured incorrectly, right? So now it's up. I mean, this is what we are doing here, right? So what we are sending, I mean, what we are doing here is, if you look at this monitor that we have applied here, if you look at this monitor, right? Test HTTP monitor. We are sending this request. If we get this output, if we get this response back, it means that our web service, I mean, our web content is available. And of course, 200 OK will be a response code only and only if your request was succeeded in somehow, in some way. Okay. So that's what you did. You said, hey, I'm going to send that request, get request, and I'm going to receive this response back. If I get this response back, which means your web pages are available over there. But you know what's the problem? The problem is pretty simple. In every 5 seconds, you are sending get, and then you are receiving response back. And response is also containing the message body. The entire website is loading in every 5 seconds. And you know, it will consume a lot of CPU and memory, of course. That's something irrelevant. It's not needed. Even if I get the response code only, if I don't get the message body, because if you open this packet, right, if you open this message, it is also containing the body, right, message body, which is not really necessary. If I get this response code only, that is sufficient for me. So therefore, you know very well that within HTTP we have different codes, like HTTP head, the head method. We can utilize, we can leverage the head method. So one of the monitor is already there, like HTTP head. HTTP head F5. So it's already there. So we can use this head method over here, right? So I'll be using this predefined head method over here. So that's the send string. I'll be sending head method, and then I must receive this string, right? Server. But do I have their host name as server? I mean, do I have server's host name as server? No. So what I will do, let me do one thing here. Host name server one. Thereafter, host name server two. Ah, thereafter, so at this time I'll be using head method, right, to send the request. Because if I send the head method, I mean, if I use head method, then I'll not be downloading the entire website. I'll just get the response header only, not the message body. So now, if you go back to the monitors, we have a head method over here that is fine, and then it is saying that receive string should be server, right? So that's, I mean, that's okay. So what I will do, I'll go back to my pools, like web server pool, and instead of using it, I'll be using HTTP head F5, which is by default there, right? I'm gonna use it. So now you can see members, it's all available, which is good, right? And why is it good? Because of, you can see that now it is sending the head method, the head request, and you can see head. So head, this is the request, and then you got a response back. This is your response back. In response, the server is matching there. The server must be matching. I said server. So if you look at this, server is matching there. Server, right? Server is matching there. So now you can look at this, that you are getting only message. I mean, you are getting only response header. You're not getting message body. You're getting only response header. You can see that this is response, right? This is response. But still, you can see that it doesn't have any message body because you sent the head request. You sent what? Head request. Clear? And this is more efficient way to perform monitoring for your web content. Because you don't want to download the web content. You just want to verify whether web content is available or not. So whatever content you are trying for, you will get response code. And response code, if it says, hey, 200, okay, which means it is all good, right? So that's all good. That's what we wanted. We don't have to download the entire website while monitoring them. Okay. So head method is really important in that condition. For interactive check, go to monitor, create your monitor, and now basically let me explain you everything here. So in backend, if you have DNS server, then you have a DNS monitor. In backend, if you have FTP server, then you have FTP server. In backend, if you have HTTP web server, then have HTTP. In backend, if you have LDAP servers, then you have LDAP monitor. If you have POP3 servers, then you have POP3 monitor. If you have Radius servers, you have Radius monitoring, right? If you have SIP servers, SIP servers, then you have SIP as a monitor. So whatever type of servers you are having in backend, based on that, you can create your monitors and you can get them applied, right? So if it is a FTP server, like your pool members are FTP servers, they are providing FTP services, and you want to verify whether that FTP file does exist on that server or not. Because if any user is trying to access some file from the FTP server, it should be available on the FTP server. So you can tell here username, password for the FTP server, and the file path name. So what my BigIP perform, or what my BigIP, what will my big IP do is that it will generate a FTP request to download this file from this FTP server using this path, which you will define over here. If your big IP is able to download that file, which means all good, all good. If not, which means I should remove that pool member from the pool because it does not have the necessary necessary FTP data available, right? So that's how it will work. That's how you can create the interactive monitor. Okay. Now, you also have kind of passive monitoring. So in passive monitoring, what Big IP does, because your requests are being generated by clients, okay, and then those requests are hitting your virtual server, and then you have attached your pool to the virtual server, and pool is getting, pool is distributing those requests or those connections among all of the pool members. Now, your big IP knows very well that, hey, I have sent a request to this pool member. Am I getting a response back? Okay, if I'm getting the response back, then why should I use the external monitor? Because I mean, if I'm already knowing, if I'm already aware that, hey, I'm getting the replies for my client from this server, which means server is providing services perfectly. So I don't have to put the external monitor, right? So in that condition, go for the passive monitoring where you use, your pre-configured services. I mean, if your big IP is able to establish the connections with your real servers for the for running services, right? I mean, that's fine. That's sufficient for us to understand that, yeah, server is working fine. So that is also something that is possible, right? So I believe that's something maybe in band or what? Maybe it's in band. It's in band, right? So in band, you don't have to configure any external monitor. You know very well that clients are always making requests, right? Clients are hitting virtual server. So your big IP can monitor all of the pool members based on the request that big IP is giving to them, and they are providing responses back to the big IP, right? So based on that, it can monitor them automatically without configuring any external monitor. Thereafter, you also have one more type of monitor, which is WMI, and this is what this. I mean, this is really interesting, and this is really mandatory for you to apply this monitor for your pool. For your pool, this is really mandatory if you are using your load balancing algorithm as dynamic ratio. If you are using dynamic ratio, then it is mandatory for you to use this monitoring, this monitor profile, or this, this monitor for your pool. It is mandatory. You see that it has a script here, right? And it will get you what? The load percentage, the disk uses, the physical memory, the CPU information like get CPU info, get disk info, get OS info. So this is what it will get you get for you, right, from the real server. And based on that, your big IP will set the ratio dynamically for each pool member. So that's what you can do. So this monitor is really important if you really want to use your load balancing algorithm as a dynamic ratio. So if anyone having any questions around this, please go ahead and ask your questions because I'm done with the practicals as well. So if I go back here, this is what we did. We configured, HTTP monitor. Then, we modified the timers as well, right? Assigning monitor, we came to know, and what is the node default, node is specific, none. We did all that, right? Pool members will always inherit from the pool. How you can have it member specific, this is what we have already covered, right? Assigning monitor to all nodes, I told you default monitor, right? And afterward, I also told you that how to create the monitors, right? And how to assign them to a pool, right? And of course, these are the status. So the meaning of green circle is available. The red diamond is offline. Then blue square is unknown. And yellow triangle is like connection limit has been exceeded, right? So that's how you could interpret these color codes, okay? You know very well node, and then node will become the member of the pool, right? Member and then pool and then virtual server. That's parent-child relationship. Remember, the status of the virtual server will always remain green as long as at least one pool member is available. So if entire pool is down, then of course the status of the virtual server will also be down. So does that make sense to all of you? What we have covered so far? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Right, guys. So Parveen, if you have any questions, please go ahead, ask those.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions.
All right. So I think for today, this is sufficient. And tomorrow I'll continue with the profiles. Okay?
Sir, I do have a question.
Mhm.
Which when we configured HTTP head and content check, so the receive
Mhm.
string we were configuring as server. So that is something which is specific to host name,
No,
or
no, no. It is not specific to host name. This is something specific what you are getting in your responses. So server was there, right? SERVER. So it is matching with this, right? That's
okay.
it. Not to the host name. So, but instead of configuring that receive, I mean, I kept it default, but you could also do it like you could also define your response code like 200 OK. Okay, you could also say that. Remember, we did it in last class. We defined your response code 200 OK. So if I'm sending the uh, head request, then I must have a status, I must receive a status code of 200. And that is good for me. That is okay for me. That's correct. That's correct. So, guys, that's it for today. And tomorrow I'll continue
Profiles.
with the profiles. So I request you to go through the TCP and UDP protocols at least. At least try to understand the TCP and UDP and their working behavior, so that it will be easy for you to make some changes within the TCP or UDP profile. Okay. All right. So I'll see you tomorrow now, and bye for now.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.